Hello everyone, this is Mohini Sharma, founder and director of Mrs.India.Inc. Here we are live today with a special episode. And Mrs.India.Inc is a platform which is normally known, a journey where women self-explore themselves, self-discover themselves. Where today, we are going to talk about one of the most controversial incidents that happened in Sri Lanka. We are giving a chance to one strong woman, this woman of substance, who is going to speak about her part of story, about her side of story. This woman is none other than the queen, former Mrs. World, Caroline Jurie. Caroline Jurie, can I invite you on live? If you can see this, if you receive the invite. Hi, Caroline. Hope you're doing very well.
Hi. Hi, Mohini. I'm doing great.
I'm beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Great. So, Caroline, since I've already spoken about the incident, the episode that the world had witnessed on 4th April 2021, which was
Mrs. Sri Lanka world. You were a part of this controversy. I wouldn't say that you witnessed it, but you were a part of this controversy. We have seen a lot of news, a lot of opinions, a lot of point of view on different platforms, on different news channels, on different social media.
None of us know your side of the story. So we are live on Mrs.India.Inc with you to know your side of the story. If you can narrate what happened on 4th April 2021 at Mrs. Sri Lanka World National Pageant. For us.
Okay. It's not exactly my story that I want to talk about, Mohini. I will tell you what happened, why it happened, and how it happened. Mrs. Sri Lanka was tainted by politics, influence, and corruption. Mohini, I need to give you a background to this year's Mrs. Sri Lanka first. Because I won the Mrs. World 2020 title then. There were many contestants who believed it could be done. They realized that the dream is possible. They knew that I come from a simple middle-class background, and they got to know about my tough journey to the world crown. So they came forward with hope that even if a woman like me could do it, there was a real chance that this dream is possible. They were honest, hardworking women who were looking for a fair chance on a fair stage. Mohini, the rule that you must be in an active marriage, if you are to apply and compete, it's a norm. When I sensed something was not right during the early stages, I checked with the relevant authority. I was assured that everything is within the rule book and there is nothing to worry about. I wanted to make sure everyone had a fair chance and the rules and guidelines were adhered to. Anyway, things started getting out of hand on the 2nd of April, just 2 days before the event. It all started when I got a call from a lady who is in active politics. It was not a pleasant call, Mohini. I don't want to go into detail as to what she said, but I made it very clear to her that she cannot intimidate me with threats. I told her to respect the rules of the contest and not to meddle with the proceedings. The point she made is that the Q&A session must be open to any language. I pointed out that the Mrs. World guidelines clearly say at the World Final, it cannot guarantee a translator, therefore English is preferred. When I pointed that there are 2 judges who cannot understand Sinhala or Tamil properly, she said she will talk to the national director and arrange for a translator at the Mrs. Sri Lanka final. One of the judges was from overseas Moini, you were that judge. But given the threatening nature of the call, I realized things were being planned out behind the scenes, and the destiny of the Mrs. Sri Lanka crown was already decided. When I tried to contact the relevant authority of the national event, I was unable to get through by call or message. Clearly, the person concerned avoided picking up my calls or responding to my texts. That evening itself, I sent an email to the Mrs. World organization and told them I'm stepping down from the panel of judges. I gave my reasons and explained the issue. I even raised the point that rules are being ignored and that the world body must intervene immediately and make sure the contest is fair to every participant. As the reigning Mrs. World Moini, I could not allow power and corruption to raise its ugly head and ruin the event. The moment the contestants got to know of my decision, some of them called and wanted to withdraw from the contest. I told them that they should give their best till the last moment and not to give up. I assure that I will always stand by justice. The contestants felt that the winner was already decided, Moini. And I assure that I will make sure that the authority of the national event plays fair and will not let corruption take over the final. They felt that if I'm a judge, there would be a chance of a fair contest. The next morning, the 3rd of April, the authority of the national event pleaded with me to stay in the panel of judges. So he finally contacted me, Moini. But I pointed out that rules and regulations have to be respected and that we have to maintain the standards by which the World Finals will be conducted. And I told him about the call from the lady in active politics, which he obviously knew about. I demanded that he keeps her out from meddling with the process of judging Moini. I told him that it is on that basis that I would stay in the panel of judges. But he didn't give me that assurance. I realized his hands were tied. I told him that he should have the courage and integrity to stand up for what is right. I reminded him that he would be misleading all the contestants who had come into the contest following the proper rules and regulations, spending their time and their money. I told him that as the authority in charge of the national event, he must show that he is clean and free of corruption. On the 4th, there was no translator at the finals, as promised by the lady who called me 2 days earlier. Moini, you were there as a judge, and you were one of the 2 judges who did not understand similar. We all know what the result was, but these are not the only issues, Moini. It was also reported that a well-known hairdresser, beautician, and salon owner, who was also a judge, styled the hair of the winning contestant on the morning of the event. This information needs to be clarified. I'm hoping this didn't happen. The last thing we would want is to have the Mrs. Sri Lanka contest fall to such a state of corruption. On the morning of the 5th April, which is the morning after the event, I phoned the Mrs. World organization and checked on the eligibility of the winner. The Mrs. World organization confirmed to me that the winner is disqualified because she is not in an active marriage. I requested the Mrs. World organization to publish a memo and officially confirm this. To my surprise, Moini, on the 6th of April, a memo was published in the online edition of a very well-known English newspaper. It carried the Mrs. World logo, but there was no signature or designation. This memo was directed at me to say what I did was wrong. By afternoon, people realized it was a fake memo. Even the fact check website claimed it was fake. The way the memo had been written and the use of English proved that this memo was not typed out by a professional organization. Moini, my legal team investigated the matter a few days later, and we found out that the memo is fake. I know exactly who was behind this act that brought embarrassment to this online English newspaper. I hope this well-respected online English newspaper makes corrections so that its online platform will not be used as a space for petty personal agendas by its senior executives, which will only bring discredit to the reputation it has built up as a respected newspaper. A real memo from the Mrs. World was later published by the same daily online English newspaper, stating that the Mrs. Sri Lanka pageant is a local production and they cannot interfere in the events that occurred at the Mrs. Sri Lanka final. On the 10th of April, I released a video and warned that I'm ready to give up the crown in the face of the injustice at the Mrs. Sri Lanka final. I gave the Mrs. World organization 10 more days to hold an investigation to the malpractices and corruption that took place at the finals. On the 21st of April, I resigned from my title as Mrs. World and gave up the Mrs. World crown. Moini, wearing the crown any longer was not right by all the contestants who were denied justice and a fair stage at the Mrs. Sri Lanka final. If we continue to let power and influence corrupt the pageant industry like this, there will be no hope for the industries in future. The Mrs. Sri Lanka contest must be cleaned up. Corruption of any form must not be tolerated. Mrs. World must monitor the national directors and make sure that that no one can buy them. Rules and guidelines must be adhered to. When I gave up the crown, Sri Lanka lost the second Mrs. World crown we won, which we won after 35 years, Moini. By giving up the crown, the message I wanted to give the world and all future contestants is simple and clear. Winning and wearing a world crown means nothing if you cannot stand for the values it represents. If you win a world crown, you must use it for the betterment of the industry. Never ever use it to gain power and use that power to promote corruption, malpractices, and degrade the industry. Moini, I will end my answer with the same thought the Time magazine quoted me, saying in the April 26 to May 3rd, 2021 issue. If I have to lose the Mrs. World crown for the values I stand for, I believe I am standing for the values Mrs. World stands for. Moini, I gave up the crown and resigned from my title so that corruption will not be what determines who wins the crown.
Well, Caroline, I do remember reading the Times magazine and the note that was stated that
the video we made by giving up the crown. Anyways, moving ahead, we have the next question. since you said about the shortcomings and the lack of standards, I was going to ask about the regulation that you have recommended government to come up with. So there's no country in the world that has any regulatory system when it comes to pageant industry. And in Sri Lanka, you are the one who has submitted a list of regulations that the pageant industry should have. If you can enlighten us, I don't remember reading these regulations, but I'm sure audience would like to know what these regulations are about.
Yeah. Yes, Moini, pageants must be regulated because we must make sure that corruption does not ruin this industry. The only way we can stop corrupt people from ruining this industry is by regulating pageants. We can't have a repeat of Mrs. Sri Lanka 2020. This is the only way to stop corrupt national directors and people using influence trying to buy their crowns. Moini, some people think beauty pageants are skin deep. Even after the Mrs. Sri Lanka 2020 pageant, and because I took a stand against injustice and corruption, many comments on social media by activists and marketers said that beauty pageants are outdated and don't serve any purpose. But Moini, I strongly believe that the pageant industry can empower women. I strongly believe that empowerment is a great tool for a small country like us. We have so much potential and we can achieve a lot with empowerment. But we can't empower our women and fulfill that potential if pageants are tainted with corruption. We must clean up the industry. Social backgrounds, ethnicity, none of this matters, Moini. The only thing that must happen is that any woman must have a fair chance to compete and win on a fair stage. Moini, we have the talent in this country. We can bring more world crowns to Sri Lanka. But as long as the industry is not regulated, corrupt people will use their power and influence to cheat. I believe regulating pageants, it's something the entire world needs to consider. Moini, this is the only way that every contestant will have an equal chance to win a crown. Regulating pageants is important because, Moini, pageants have the power to empower.
One side you talk about regulating pageants, one side you talk about giving a fair chance, and one side you talk about empowering women. But what media came up with the whole incident that you did discrimination amongst the women who are married, women who are divorced. What would you like to say on this?
Moini, I'm not too surprised by what people said. My Instagram and Facebook pages also got flooded with negative messages and comments for about 2 weeks. I read almost 100% of those messages and comments. I didn't delete any of them. They are still there. Some of those messages were from fake profiles. You can pay and get people to do that. But most of them were real. I am not surprised about people's reaction, Moini. Even local and international media looked at a 1-minute clip and called it crown snatching. But I am not surprised by the media reaction. They just wanted to create drama more than trying to understand the real picture. Moini, that night, what I stood against is discrimination. I stood for the 19 contestants who were cheated by the organizers. They spent a lot of money and even risked their jobs and committed a lot of time and effort. They were completely hoodwinked by the national director. and the lady politician who controlled him behind the scenes. The contestants spent their precious time, Moini. That time they wasted, they could have spent with their children. To steal their time and cheat them like that is unacceptable. The ugly head of corruption rose up once again that night. Rules are rules. If a pageant rules require you to be in an active marriage to participate at the Mrs. World pageant, then you have to. You can't find loopholes and side with corruption and try to win at any cost. That night, the national director and the other corrupt people who control him killed the dreams of all the women who worked hard with honesty and integrity and came forward to compete thinking it was a fair contest. This is the kind of corruption and discrimination that brings a bad reputation to my country. It takes the pageant industry down to ugly depths. I stood for justice that night, Moini, and I stood for what is right. I stood up against discrimination. The most harmful form of discrimination is to use power and influence to win on a stage you aren't even qualified to compete on. I also want to be very clear that I have nothing against separated or divorced women. But if they felt I hurt them, my apology to them is the open crown. It is a contest in which a woman can compete on a fair stage, whether she's married, separated, or divorced, whether she's from the upper segment of society, middle, or lower. Moini, the open crown is open to all and anyone can compete.
Hi, Caroline. We've been talking about discrimination. We've been talking about the dedication. We've been talking about the women empowerment. Each pageant queen has its own style to empower women. Since we are here live on Mrs.India.Inc platform that stands to empower women, I would like to know, now since I'm talking to former Mrs. Boyd, what has been your role? What have you done? What responsibilities have you taken over during your reign period to empower women?
Moini, empowerment is a magical tool. I believe we can use it to uplift lives. But to make use of any tool more effectively, we need to know the tool well. So the first thing, Moini, and the best thing I did during the past 1.5 years that we lost to the pandemic is to actually study about empowerment. See, Moini, there is no point trying to do something just because you must do something. Since we got into this lockdown situation, I took the time to understand empowerment. But I must tell you, Moini, that empowerment and charity are two different things. I leave my camera behind when I do charity. As for empowerment, I got together with a group of people who believe in empowerment like I do, and we launched First Step. It is an initiative to empower women and children in Sri Lanka. Moini, if you visit my social media pages, you can get a good idea about First Step. We have launched 2 projects. One is Jata, it means scarf you wear on the head. It's a local term. So in Sinhala, we call it Jatava. 100% of the profit from all the Jatas sold goes to empowering people bravely fighting cancer. The other project is called Podikade. Podikade means small shop in Sinhala language. Moini, during the COVID pandemic, most of the micro level and home-based businesses got affected so badly in Sri Lanka. So a group of people and I came up with this idea to empower micro level and home-based businesses via social media. We hope to empower those small and micro level businesses with knowledge and expertise to groom their businesses. Podikade is also zero profit project. So Moini, all the empowerment projects we have planned will come under first step.
That sounds good, Caroline, and that's a great initiative, I would say.
Thank
But
you.
Mrs.India.Inc also stands to, whether you talk about charity, whether you talk about empowerment, we have been majorly involved in all these areas, and I'm sure you've had your own experience. When you did visit for Mrs. India grand finale, national finale, this Jan, would you like to speak about your experience that you had?
Yeah. Thank you, Moini, for inviting me as a judge. It was a wonderful experience. I was most impressed by the Q&A session. The final top 6 contestants gave the judges a tough time trying to select the best. The final Q&A is the most important segment of a pageant because that is where the judges measure the beauty of purpose of each contestant. The amount of training and expertise that has gone into preparation of the contestants was uncompromising. The judges had individual tables. They were not seated together, so they could not discuss with each other. It must be a tough task to maintain standards of a national title that represents 1.3 billion people. Standards are important. It is the most important fact that I want to emphasize on. And this is a basic requirement that Mrs. World Organization needs to fulfill. Moini, this is what I have to say. And for sure, Moini, next time when I come over to Mumbai, I will stay for a longer time because I want to explore the city of Mumbai. The last time when I came to India, Moini, you were such a great host. I will always remember that visit.
Well, that was a special visit, I would say, because that was done during the COVID times, and it wasn't easy, but I'm glad somehow you managed, and we were glad to have you. It was great to have you on the chatting panel. Well, thank you so much, Caroline.
You're welcome, Moini.
And this interview not saying that we heard your side of the story, but you did keep your opinion and your point of view out here. We are no one to judge people. We are no one to decide who's good, who's bad, but we are here to express ourselves. That's what Mrs.India.Inc platform is moving for. We give voice to the powerful women so that they can reach out to the society, to each and every citizen of the world. Thank you once again, Caroline. It was great.
Thank you.
And I wish to see you soon in India, in Mumbai. I'm sure you will
Definitely.
some more time.
Thank you, Moini.
All the aspirants who are registered for Mrs.India.Inc competition. Can you hear me, Caroline? Am I audible?
Yeah, Moini, hello.
Yes. Would you like to give any message to the participants who have registered for Mrs. India?
Yes, I want to say focus and not to give up. Don't ever give up. And I want to wish them all the very best and do it from bottom of your heart and believe in yourself.
Great. And your last message, I'm not letting you go. Your last message, if you like to give something to Mrs. Nadeep, who would be representing India at the incoming Mrs. World competition. Am I audible, Caroline? Can you hear me? Okay, I'll repeat my question. Can you hear me? Am I audible?
Yes, Moini. Yes.
Yes. So, anyways, we will wind it now. And thank you once again, Caroline, for joining us at this live. It was great having you. and we'll hopefully meet soon. Thank you. Goodbye. Always,
Thank you,
thank you
Mary.
so much for joining in. Have a great evening. Have a great weekend. Goodbye.
Goodbye.